You probably think you're choosing between brands. You compare logos, features, prices, reviews. You believe you're picking the better product, the smarter one, the one that will last longer. But what if that choice was already made before you ever clicked buy? What if most of the different products you're comparing are built on the exact same internal blueprint? Same factory, same components, sometimes even the same defects, just wearing a different name. Because behind the brands you recognize, there's a hidden layer you don't see. A small group of suppliers quietly shaping entire industries. And once you notice it, everything starts to feel the same. That's the mechanism most people miss. Own consolidation. A handful of upstream manufacturers designing the guts of the products you buy, while brands compete on the surface. It looks like variety. It feels like competition. But underneath, it's standardization at scale. It starts in places you wouldn't expect. Open up a blender, a coffee maker, an air fryer. Different logos on the outside. Inside, the same motor assemblies. The same thermal cutoffs. The same control boards. It's not an accident. It's a system. Brands don't build products anymore. They assemble identities. They go to an OEM supplier, choose a pre-built internal platform, and customize the shell, change the color, move the buttons, adjust the firmware slightly. And now it's a new product. The evidence is hiding in plain sight. Repair technicians see it constantly. Two completely different brands come in with the same issue, same failure point, same replacement part number. One costs $79, the other costs $129. Both fail within the same window. The assumption most people make is that cheaper products cut corners while premium ones invest in quality. But in many cases, they're built on the same internal design. The difference isn't durability, it's positioning. And that has consequences. You're not actually choosing between different levels of quality. You're choosing between different versions of the same thing. The lifespan of the product wasn't decided by the brand. It was decided upstream by a supplier you've probably never heard of. But here's where it gets more unsettling. It's not just that components are shared, it's that weaknesses are shared too. When a flaw exists at the supplier level, it spreads across every brand using that platform. Like a quiet, invisible chain reaction. One undersized capacitor, one heat-sensitive connector, one bearing that wears down just a little too fast. And suddenly, dozens of products across multiple brands start failing in the same way, around the same time. The mechanism behind that is efficiency. OEM is designed for cost targets at massive scale. They reduce material usage, tighten tolerances, optimize for warranty survival, not long-term reliability. If a component lasts long enough to avoid returns, it passes, even if it fails shortly after. And because that same design is reused across brands, the failure pattern repeats. The evidence is something you've probably experienced without thinking about it. Products that work perfectly, until they don't. No warning, no gradual decline, just failure, often right after the warranty expires. It feels random, like bad luck. But when you zoom out, you start to see the pattern. It's not one product. It's an entire category behaving the same way. The common belief is that you got a defective unit, a lemon, but what's actually happening is more systematic. The failure point isn't unique to your device. It's built into the shared design, not as a conspiracy, but as a calculated trade-off. And the result is predictable. You replace things more often. You start losing trust in brands. But you never quite identify the real source of the problem, because it sits behind all of them. If you ask people who repair these products for a living, they'll tell you something quietly. If you know the supplier, you can predict the lifespan. Not the brand, the supplier. Now take that one step further. Even when the hardware is identical, brands still need a way to differentiate. That's where software comes in. Two devices, same internals, same sensors, same processing capability, but one has features locked. The other doesn't. The mechanism is subtle. OEMs deliver a base platform. Brands layer firmware on top to create product tiers, not by improving hardware, but by restricting it, disabling features, limiting performance, creating artificial separation between models. The evidence shows up in ways that don't quite make sense. Devices that can be unlocked through unofficial firmware. Products where the Pro version is internally identical to the standard one. Subscription features that exist on hardware you already paid for. It's like buying a car with a fully capable engine, but needing to pay extra to access the horsepower. The common belief is that higher-priced models are physically better, but often they're just less restricted. The difference is software, not substance. And the consequence is subtle, but significant. You end up paying more, not for better materials or engineering, but for access. And sometimes, that access can be taken away. Updates don't always add features. Sometimes they remove them. Because control doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the system the product is connected to. Now, if this is starting to sound familiar, take a second and hit like, because once you see this pattern, you'll start noticing it everywhere. And if you've ever had something fail right after the warranty, or felt like two different brands behaved exactly the same, drop it in the comments. There's a good chance it traces back to the same place. But we're not done yet, because even beyond software, there's a physical layer to this problem that most people never consider: heat. Specifically, how poorly it's managed in mass-produced designs. When OEMs create a shared platform, they design for average conditions, average use, average airflow, average environments. But real life isn't average, and the margin for error is thin. The mechanism is simple. Components are packed tightly to save space and reduce cost. Cooling is minimal. Airflow is restricted. And over time, heat builds up in the same predictable areas. Capacitors degrade. Plastic components warp. Solder joints weaken. The evidence is consistent. Devices that suddenly stop working without visible damage. Repair inspections that reveal the same overheated zones across different brands. Because again, the internal layout is shared. The common belief is that the product was overused or not maintained properly. But often, the design itself couldn't handle long-term real-world conditions. And the consequence is frustratingly familiar. Premature failure that feels random, but isn't. And switching brands doesn't solve it. It just resets the cycle. Now step back and look at the bigger picture. Why does this system exist in the first place? Why are so many brands relying on the same suppliers? Because control has shifted upstream. A small number of OEMs dominate critical components: motors, chips, sensors, control boards. Brands compete in marketing, but depend on the same ecosystem to build their products. The mechanism here is supply chain concentration. It's more efficient, more scalable, but it limits differentiation at the core level. Brands can only innovate within the boundaries set by their suppliers. The evidence is subtle, but everywhere. Entire product categories evolving in sync. Same features appearing at the same time. Same limitations persisting across brands. It's not independent innovation. It's shared progression. The common belief is that brands are leading change, but often they're following what suppliers make possible. And the consequence is something most people feel, but can't quite explain. Everything starts to feel the same, because at a certain level, it is. Now here's the part that changes how you look at all of this. The brands that actually last. The ones people describe as buy it for life. Don't play this game the same way. They either control their own manufacturing or they deliberately avoid these shared platforms. They accept higher costs, lower margins, slower product cycles, but in return, they control the design, the materials, the failure points. And that's the difference. Not branding, not marketing, control. So if you've ever wondered why so many products feel interchangeable now, why failures seem to repeat across different names, why upgrading doesn't always fix the problem, this is why. Because the choice you thought you were making was never really a choice to begin with. And once you understand that, you start asking a different question. Not which brand is better, but who actually built this?